And here we are. We today are looking at making juices with the most phenomenal juicer for the price point. Anyway, one of my favorite juicer right now, but we're juicing the fruits of the season today because we want to make sure that people not just survive winter, but thrive in winter. So, welcome to Elegantly Raw. So here we go. We have some of these passion fruit, which I already have taken and made into, well, I took them out of the flesh actually, just like this. They were in the flesh. I scooped them out with a spoon, and this is what I got from it. This way we can make the liquid, which is the juice, really quickly and easily. And I am using these apples. I don't know if you've ever seen these. I've never seen these Arkansas black apples before until this winter, the first time I found them in the market. So we're using these today along with some gala apples. And so we're going to be using the Nama juicer. Now, one of the things I love about it, do you see how this comes together? So this is for the fiber and this is for the juice. And they actually are stored together. And I love this. The people who created this juicer worked for 2 years with the people in South Korea who created the Huram juicer. And what they have come up with, it's really, to me, remarkable, quite outstanding. So this is the small one, is the one that gets the juice right here. And what I love is that this juicer also mixes the juice. So especially now, I'm mixing two things today in the juice. You'll see we'll mix it before, and there's no need afterwards to do anything at all. All I have to do is plug this in now, and we will start making our juice. So we do not even need to mix it afterwards or to strain it. So here we go. Apples first. So you'll see that here comes the fiber, but there'll be very little fiber. There won't be a lot. Now watch this part of it. You'll see it starts filling up with juice. And this is where everything gets mixed together. Now, why am I doing apples? Because these are the fruits of the season. And apples are very alkaline and very healing. And one of the things that people love is apple juice. This is a great juice for everyone in the family. Every single person in the family can benefit from this. So I'm making something really simple today. One of the things that I find is that there's too much complication going on in the living foods movement rather than just eating things as they are. So look how big this piece is, but it will take it. So you see, I can put it in the chute here, or right here, I can slip it down if it's too big for the chute. And this is the reason why I really, really like this one. So now I'm going to be putting in the passion fruit. I love this so much. This is my second favorite fruit right now. And that one will go down like this. So can you hear the seeds? So I want you to see all these seeds in there are going to go through the juice, and you will not see any seeds when it come out. That's what an amazing juice it is. Really thorough, incredibly thorough. And do you see how quiet it is? Even with the seeds going through, it's very quiet. And I'm going to take the apple and I'm going to use it to put the seeds of the passion fruit down like that. And now I'm going to use the plunger and make sure that it goes all the way in. You don't always have to do this. Only sometimes. It depends on what it is you're juicing and exactly how you position it in there. But very often, I don't even ever have to do that. So see, I'm taking the apple, I hope you can see this, and I'm putting down that now. A little bit here too, and here, almost finished already. Now look at this. Do you see that this is filling up with juice? And it's mixing both of the passion fruit and the apples at the same time. This one is a bit big, so I'm using a ceramic knife only to cut this and take this down there. Also, look at how much we have already. We have enough for a glass. So it's quick, it's easy, it's pain-free. And now watch what happens. It's been mixed in the meantime. I don't have to mix nor filter it. I just open this, and there you have the juice. Isn't that magical? I love this juicer. So this is a very, very, very easy juice to make. Now, should you have a problem with it, you just press this down and it pulls everything back up. You press this again, but very rarely do I have a problem. I also find it doesn't overheat much at all. So also notice I move this away, but this isn't dripping because I closed this again. So here we go. The aroma. Oh, I wish you could smell this. It is just intoxicating. So here we go. The most incredible apple passion fruit juice. Now, if I wanted to put some greens in here, I could have put some microgreens or some sprouts, which is what I usually do. But I wanted to keep this really simple for you today to show you how quick it is to make a morning juice. Or you can keep it in the fridge, and when you come home hot and tired and bothered, or if it's not hot, even if you're cold, it's a wonderful juice to be having. So I will use this to say welcome to our very special guest today, Brian Clement from Hippocrates Health Institute. Hello, Brian.
How are you doing out there in Los Angeles?
Oh, smashingly well. Lots of wonderful winter fruits available right now. How are you managing at the Hippocrates Health Institute?
Well,
and tell us.
Great. We've never closed in spite of this worldwide insanity that the pharmaceuticals have brought us. And, people are coming here from all over the world. We have people here from the Middle East now and Europe, and it's normal. This is the safest and the sanest place on the planet. We've been testing everyone since February or March who come in. So there's no one here. And we began with new technology, which is interesting. We have misters in all the public areas, and it puts this wonderful probiotic out that instantaneously, less than a second, kills any microbe, including this 19 manufactured virus. And so it's great. And when it settles in the room, it gets between the cracks and crevices, it literally sits there for 4 days and kills anything that comes into that room. But we run it every 2 days here.
Oh, wow. So, Brian, if people want to get a hold of this, where can they do so?
Well, you could write into Hippocrates, and we can give you the name. It's a California guy that I spoke to, and it's distributed throughout the world. And how I learned about it is a man came here after 9/11. He recovered. He was very, very sick, and that's his business. And Wall Street uses it. All the large corporations have been using this. And unless I knew him, I wouldn't be privy to this.
Oh, wow. So tell us how you started, Brian, because you are celebrating your 50th anniversary.
Yeah. So, about 51 years ago, I was not the same guy I am today. I was severely obese, and that was unique at that point in history. You didn't see overweight or morbidly obese people like you do today. It was less than 7% of the population. Now in the United States, it's 72% of our youth are overweight, morbidly obese, or obese in some way. And I was fortunate because I was starting to show the effect of it. I had a hard time breathing, had time walking upstairs. My smoking cigarettes and grass didn't help either. And I met a woman who was 75 years old at that point, who told me a tale. Initially, I didn't believe, because as an Irish guy, we have giant families, because the Catholic Church did a great job perpetuating numbers. And I would often, once every couple of months, 3-4 months, would be in a wake, as we call them, a funeral home, and be with an uncle or a relative or a neighbor who had died. And quite often I'd hear them whisper cancer. So as a young child, I thought when I saw somebody in a casket and they had cancer, that's where everyone ends up. And this woman told me she'd healed stage 4 cancer, and took me under her wing and told me I should work in this field. And I was studying biochemistry and and chemistry and physics at that point. And there is still today on the planet no formal school you can learn legitimate lifestyle. You know, they give you little tidbits of nonsense most of the time. So it took the formal education and then started to study with some of the great teachers at the time, Paul Bragg and Dr. John Christopher and Dr. Jensen, one of my favorite guys in the world. And all of these people were accessible. And I would spend either an evening with them at a lecture or sometimes weekend programs, 1-week programs. And over time, I realized that although a plant-based diet was fantastic, and I never felt better in my life, and I lost 120 pounds, and I started to feel clear and conscious. One summer, I happened to be living in Oregon, and Southern Oregon, unlike other parts, is really warm. From about May until October, it's often 100 degrees. And I just gravitated to eat raw food and didn't even consciously think I'm going to eat raw food. And after a couple of months of doing that, I was on a totally different level of understanding. My head was super clear. My energy was unbelievable. And I recall reading what I considered at the time a wacky book from a wacky person. It was called Be Your Own Doctor. And it was written by a woman called Anne Wigmore, who founded the very first natural residential lifestyle center on the planet. She was the pioneer of lifestyle medicine. And she realized after healing herself of stage 4 cancer, in 1952, the Harvard doctors told her that. 56, she opened this institute in Boston. And I went and I worked with her. In 75, I joined the team and have been director since 1980. So this is my 40th anniversary as director, my 50th anniversary having the privilege to work in this field, and have been a raw food consumer since then, and a researcher, and watching the sickest people on the planet Earth come through the programs we have here. We have, the standard program, the one most people attend is called the Life Transformation Program. Then we have the Comprehensive Cancer Program. Then we have a fasting program. Then we have a longevity program. And we have professional educational programs where people come to be credentialed by us, and an online program. And the reality is we've been watching these people in a clinical setting doing sophisticated testing on them. We bring in from Europe the most advanced scanning testing, CyberScan and BioWell. We're looking at, we just pray someday doctors are mandated to look at what we have to look at. But of course, here in America, this is not considered diagnostic. We have to call it biofeedback. And then our medical team here does blood tests, and we've been seeing thousands and thousands and thousands, that's not a joke, by the way, of people reverse advanced stage 4 disease. And those of us that, by the way, live this way, we just don't age the way the rest of the population does. Not only is this my 50th year, I'm 70 this year. And I feel like I'm about 20 years old.
So, Brian, have you been living a living foods diet all this time?
Oh, yes, I do. So I eat about 90%. I eat a little cooked food on time, probably 4 or 5 days a week. It's 100% raw. I fast 2 days a week. So I fast for 48 hours on green juices and lemon water and things like this. And have done that for 47, 48 years now, I think. As of next week, it will be 48 years. And for 8 years, I ate 100% raw diet. And we teach people here, when you're in the conquest of disease, you have to be 100% raw. And there's major science, not only that we've created in 65 years, but extraordinary researchers, for instance, the Linus Pauling Institute, Dr. Williams, that is part of our online faculty, by the way. And he has done the research on why this program has been able to help people reverse cancers, et cetera. And there's these magical nutrients that nature and the universe put into all raw plants called phytochemicals. And if you'd asked me in 1988, how people recovered from multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, ALS sometimes. That's a hard one, though. All forms of cancer. Diabetes is so easy, type 2, and heart cardiovascular. We didn't know. We would watch it, we'd observe it, we had opinions, but we were wrong, frankly. By the 1990s, a body of evidence started to arise, and I've written books for the medical profession on this. I have a series called Food is Medicine, a 3-volume series that gathered together all this international research that's phenomenally powerful about these phytonutrients. But think about this. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of years ago, before any creatures were here, before there was one animal, no less you, these plants had these nutrients coded into them that were going to heal our species, that didn't show up in this form until about 10,000 years ago. Now think about that. If you don't believe in God and magic, that's a way to start doing it. And in my books, I write about how some of these plants have these chemistries that fight heart disease, and some fight cancer, some fight parasites, some fight, diabetes, and it's remarkable. And as time passes, the international research community, at least the cutting edge people, are giving us deeper understandings about this. And so there's major reason people should consider on a raw food diet. Today, we're just still struggling, the advocates for this, to get people to eat plant-based or vegan. And I understand that. And so all they're saying is it doesn't matter if you cook the food, it doesn't matter if you do this, it does matter. But I understand if we can just get people to eat Beyond Burgers and not steak, I'm happy. Do I think Beyond Burgers or Impossible Burgers are healthy? No, but I'm very happy they've taken that step. But the ultimate thing, you don't stop on the voyage. In the middle of the ocean, if you're going from one continent to another, you don't stop there and sit there. So you've got to, in my view, keep going. And as you go, and I did it by mere luck, not intelligence, that hot summer, you'll see greater and greater benefit. And the other facts that most people overlook, when I got bored with biochemistry and biology and what is standardly taught, I started to study quantum physics, quantum biology. I'm currently writing a book on quantum biology, and recognized that every single creature on Earth, we share the Earth with about 8 million known creatures. Now, there's many more. These are the ones we, with our infinite limitation, have identified. Every one of those creatures in nature eat 100% raw diet. The only creature on Earth that doesn't eat 100% raw food diet is humans. And look at our state of health. It's unbelievable. As we sit here and speak, Dr. Tuttle is here in residence. We often have some of my colleagues from all over the globe that come in, and he'll be here a month with us and teaching. He's written The Peace Diet, as you know, and we talk about this. He's well educated. He has a doctorate in what he's doing. And we compare the theology and the biology, and it's really the same exact thing. That I know for me, because I liked animal foods. I used to eat them and I used to think they were good. And I actually had myself believing they were tasty when I met this woman when I was a young man, 20-year-old man. So the only way I could get myself to do it is take a moral stance, and whatever it takes, it's perfectly fine. I had dogs. I always loved dogs. I was hugging, kissing them. They were part of my family. And my friend, this older woman, said to me, you're eating these creatures. And I never equated, like most people don't equate, that there's not a big step from a dog to a cow or a dog to a chicken. What's the difference? And in some of the books I've written, Killer Fish and Poison Poultry and Dairy Deception, each portray that. And even with fish, as an example, I speak about the cultural society that these fish have and how they are more sophisticated. Listen to what I'm saying. More sophisticated than we are. The communication, they have a pecking order, they have leaders, and you and I have been taught to believe that they're subservient to us, so it's fine to slaughter them. No, it's not. When we eat eggs, I even see that with a guest here. They're willing to say to me most of the time, okay, I won't eat fish, I won't eat chicken, turkey, meat. But then they say, well, what about eggs? Because the egg industry has people believing this is a real food. It's somehow magical. I said, you realize this is an unborn chicken? And people don't think in these practical ways, as I wouldn't have at one point. So for me, it was a moral stance, and that was it. For a lot of you, because you're facing a disease, and there's more and more doctors, even average doctors, who are telling you, hey, if you have heart disease or cancer or diabetes, at least give up the animal-based foods temporarily. Why? Because the evidence is there. It's overwhelming evidence on who recovers and who doesn't recover. So, today we stand in the world as the center that has clinical data for not only half a century, but 15 years more. So 65 years, and watching the sickest people come in here with medical records, and we look at them, and they're on the record. It says they're going to die. There's no hope. They've done these treatments, hasn't worked. And then a year, 5, 10 years later, we have the new records that say they've recovered from these diseases: brain cancers, liver cancers, pancreatic cancer. I'm not suggesting everyone that comes here gets well, but one thing I will suggest is everyone that adopts the program will live a better life, less painful life, and a longer life. And if you are spiritually equipped to have a purpose and a reason to be here, a purposeful life, most likely you're going to recover completely. Because it's not just food. I wish it was just food. I said, if it was just food, I'd give you all lobotomies and feed you, you'd get well.
I'm so glad you said it's not just food. My favorite book, actually, that you've written was one about toxic clothing.
Yeah.
Could you mention something about that? Because
Yeah.
boy, people just don't believe me when I tell them.
It's unbelievable. I mean, here I know people who are eating pristine diets, exercising, beautiful bodies, work on their mind, and they're wearing polyester. It's ironic, just like they call them sports bars. What the hell is about sports in a bar where fat people drinking beer and alcohol are cheering for people running on a television set? Well, it's the same thing with exercise clothing. I don't think there's more dangerous clothing than what the average person and athlete uses for that. It's polyester, it's nylon. Now, the average garment takes 8,000 chemicals to make. Check anything I'm telling you. The book that you're talking about is called Killer Clothes. The ironic part of this, in that we quote studies that show women that wear polyester and nylon bras, if they have average size bosoms without wires, they have 6 times greater chance of cancer. Polyester nylon. I'll explain why in a minute. If you have larger bosoms and you have wire under it and it impacts the lymphatic system, it could be up to 8 times more cancer. Women come here. They're obviously knowing what we do. They're coming here because they have breast cancer. 70% of them are wearing polyester nylon bra. Even the alternative doctors, I've never heard once in these decades any doctor telling them to take that off. Now, remember, these are made out of oil, the same exact oil that they make plastic out, same exact oil that they put into your motor out there. And that oil outgasses permanently. So they tested one garment, they washed 1,000 times over a 10-year period, and it was outgassing 97% as much as the day it was manufactured. So it didn't go down to 3%. And as it decomposes, these gases come out. Where do they go? Into the bloodstream. And that's estrogenic. Now let's go back to cancer. Remember that breast cancer is 92 to 93% estrogenic. Prostate cancer, where you wear polyester nylon undergarments for boys, men, basically is 92% estrogenic. And every cancer has an estrogenic component. Maybe it's not provoked completely from estrogens, but it's an estrogenic component to it. So it's so simple to understand these things. And here's what angers me about this. And I won't name any names, but the very top, most successful designer in American history is on this diet, healed herself on this diet. So I went to New York to see her. And this is before this book was published. And Anna Marie and I put our names, and we wrote the book. I gave it to her. I said, read this book. I will rather have you put your name on it. My influence will be minimal at best. Your influence could impact the world. It could change the way the garment industry functions, going to organic, going to natural fibers. People don't realize, like, even cotton 25% of the world's pesticides, listen, are used on growing cotton. So organic cotton is important. Even the bamboo, watch, because a lot of the bamboo, they use heavy chemicals to make it into garment. There are some that don't, but you've got to ask questions. And, you know, the truth of the matter is, I think people are so overwhelmed. If they could just give up eating animals and drinking milk out of their bosoms and eating their babies, you know, the eggs, they think that's enough. It's not enough. What everyone gets here is psychotherapy. Why? Because all of us have been corrupted. Even those of us who purport we're sane and we don't have problems, we don't have emotional problems. We've been corrupted. I was so corrupted by loving parents that I never doubted they loved me, but they were corrupted by their parents, by the social abnormalities, by advertising, by the molding that happens from corporate interest. And it takes a long time to recognize things that you and I were taught as children to be right, to be normal, are often the opposite of that. I'm not suggesting that there weren't some great things that happened that you were taught, but you know, I was taught that if I didn't eat, as a man in my generation, if you don't eat meat, you're going to be a sissy. They actually said these words formally in class. The only way you'll be a man is eat meat. So frankly, I'm a flaming heterosexual. You know, I just love my wife. I love women. I always have. And the fact of the matter is, when I chose to be a vegan, I thought, is this going to change my sexuality? That's how imprinted this nonsense is in your mind. Milk. I mean, everyone was told, if you don't drink milk, your bones are going to crumble. I actually pictured my bones crumbling. And so I gave up milk. And look at the work of my friend and colleague, Dr. Campbell, who said it's the #1 food cause, dietary cause of all forms of cancer. And I agree. And the wisdom of our founder back in 1952, Ann Wigmore, after she healed, to say no animal food, including milk. It was instinctual. You know, she wasn't an intellectual. She wasn't a scientist. She was just a peasant woman who came from Europe, who had this great gift of insight that, you know, I wish I had that depth of insight that she had. But growing up as she did, very poor in the countryside in the village in Lithuania, they had to be street smart, but village smart in this case. So they had to know what herbs to eat, what foods to eat, when you're hungry, what to do. And so we've sort of lost that in our cultures. And we go along with what we're told. And we sit in class and then we listen to the authorities. And the authorities know nothing. You know, for you to listen to the average doctor about nutrition would be like coming to me and asking me to do brain surgery on you and being foolish enough to let me perform brain surgery, which I wouldn't do. The doctor is in a position where you basically expect them to know everything. And they, unfortunately, rather than being candid and saying, look, I don't know anything about that, they'll give you some half-ass answer. Whatever they read in the last magazine article in People magazine, they'll tell you, you know, and this is scary, you know, and how fundamental lifestyle is. You know, the first question shouldn't be, what do you have and what pill can we give you to suppress it? First question should be, why do you have what you have? What caused that? Was it an emotional trauma? Was it the way you've eaten for a long time? Was it you're sitting on your ass every day and not exercising at all? These are the questions we should be asking. And so, you know, we had a statistician come in here about 12 years ago. We did an interesting thing. We looked at putting together numbers on what it would take to radically eliminate two things. #1 was starvation. And we looked at just the United States alone. Every day, the average American doesn't know, we throw away $3 million of grain. So in those silos, they dig holes and they bury grain, $3 million worth. That's a lot of grain. So 3 million times 365. We just took that grain alone, then we germinated it. For every 1 pound of seed, when you sprout it, it turns into 10 pounds of food. So it multiplies 10 times. It's almost biblical. And then to top it all off, now the proteins become digestible. The carbohydrates become simple sugars, pre-digested, and the fats become essential fatty acids. The average nutrient goes up 8 times. Listen to what I'm telling you. 8 times. So the vitamin C goes up, vitamin D goes up, the vitamin A goes up, the vitamin B goes up, the mineral absorption becomes strong. And what you're doing is having enough food to feed every hungry person on the planet Earth. So if you gave us back then, and I don't know what it would be today, 12 years ago, if you gave us 150,000 volunteers, governments were adherent, they said, okay, we'll go along with this, and you gave us the grain just the American government throws away daily to keep artificially low prices, we'd wipe out world starvation in 18 months. The second thing we looked at is even more remarkable about what we could do to healthcare. If everyone was on, because we have the data here, we have the statistic. If everyone was on the Hippocrates program for 2 years, so we start in 2 years when they've been on it, and they've been 100% adherent. Now the program is not just food, it's your exercise. You're getting your head affirmative. You're doing positive, you're finding passion in your life. You're in marriages and relationships at work. You're in work that you love. We think that within a 4 to 5 year period, we'd wipe out 70 to 75% of all disease. So give us 2 years, put the entire world population on this type of lifestyle, which is the most nutritious, highest protein diet, highest mineral diet, highest essential fat diet, and cheapest. Because again, you take a seed, make 1 pound into 10 pounds, completely digestible, so starving people can digest it, as I did in India, as I did in Egypt with the United Nations back in the 70s when I was there. The reality is, we know that 5 years later, give us a total of 7 years, at the very longest, we'd wipe out 70 to 75% of the ills. Because even here in the United States, where they're totally deceptive and never tell you the truth, the Center for Disease Control literally tell you that 80% of all major diseases are lifestyle related. So that's about what we data drove and showed to be true.
And that is exactly why I had you on today, because I think what the Hippocrates Health Institute offers in West Palm Beach is not about diet. It might be, yes, the most important part for most people because their diets are so off, but it's a whole thing. I love that you do psychotherapy. You do so many things there that are just, when I was there, I was astounded of all the things that you did. So yes, even although this is absolutely beautiful and the taste is absolutely incredible, what I want to say is here's to you, Brian, because I created a show called Elegantly Raw, not raw food, but just elegantly raw, because I believed that to be raw means with our emotions, with our mental attitude, with the organization of the mind. I think the mind really leads us down some very straight paths because it's so disorganized, and we are encouraged to keep it disorganized and be distracted all the time. Whereas when somebody goes to something that you do or that I do, we look at the full person, the whole person. And that's the idea for this show. And I'd love to have you back on, Brian, because you have so much to share. And, 50 years is a lot of information to give in half an hour.
It's a lot of fun, too. It's a lot of fun. If people say I work hard, I've never worked a day. I mean, the day I work, I'm going to quit because it means I'm struggling. And if you're struggling with what you do, you're not going to be good at it. If you don't,
very, very true. Very true.
Well, it's nice to be with you. Nice to talk to and see all of you out there in the world. Happy New Year if this is going to be on now. And, let's leave 2020 behind and recognize that the next year could be the most positive year in the world. Because this year, 2020, was a year of vision. And it wasn't the kind of vision we thought we'd see. We thought we'd see a greater vision and grow and develop. But we saw a disassembling of a sick culture. And we saw a manipulation and control by the powers that be. So let's see that clarity, that vision, so that we now don't fall into that trap and we become more independent, more self-reliant, more spiritually awake and healthy as can be and happy as can be. Happy New Year, be well, and thanks for having us on.
I absolutely second that. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that next week we're having on Mai of Olac. Now, for those of you who have not had the golden opportunity of going to Olac restaurant in Fountain Valley in California or downtown LA, you know that they have a vegan menu and a raw menu, and it is the premier raw menu that I have ever had anywhere. So she'll be on next week. She'll be telling her story about from Vietnam to here and why she created Olac. And Brian, have you ever been to Olac when you were in
I
LA?
have. It's one of my favorite places when I'm out on the coast and I'm speaking. My wife and I and my children in the past, they're grown and I have 8 grandchildren now. We all loved it.
Yes, so she'll be here next week. And Brian, we'd love to have you on again in a few months. I know your schedule is pretty tight, but you're one of the most generous people that I know because you always make time. Every time I've asked you to do something, you've made time to do it. And I thank you so much because you've got so much to share. Let's keep the fun going.
Be well.
Thanks very much. Bye, everyone. See you next week.